Hello again, my DIY loving friends. I'm Sarah, and this is Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. In today's video, I am attempting the impossible. We're making a round wooden sphere out of Dollar Tree Tumbling Tower Blocks. That's never gonna work. I think I can do it. It's not possible. The blocks are rectangles. A sphere is round. I know, but I think I can do it. You're dreaming. Well, it's my channel. I have to try. Okay, it's your channel. Give it a try. Thank you, I will. Now what are we waiting for? Let's go DIY together. So for this DIY, I used just about 3 boxes of the Tumbling Tower blocks from Dollar Tree, but I am using 12 of the boxes just to build myself a tower to use to make our wooden sphere. So I'm using the closed boxes of the Tumbling Tower blocks just to build this little tower. I'm also using this balloon that I measured to have a 29-inch circumference. I used some double stick tape on the bottom of the balloon, pushed it down into the middle of my box tower with that rounded dome side facing up. And because I am definitely no math student, I Googled how to get the diameter for the widest part of the balloon, cut out a circle in some poster board that size to fit over the balloon, and as you see here, it fit nicely on there, giving me this little flat ledge around the balloon to work with. So we are making 2 sides separately of our wood sphere. So the first row is going to be the middle of the sphere, and I place my block sideways along the perimeter around the balloon. I'm using another block as a spacer in between each 2 blocks. I placed the whole tower and the balloon onto a piece of poster board so that I can spin it around like this as I'm working, which worked out great. If I run into a block that doesn't fit in a space, I'm simply going to use my miter shears that I will link for you below to cut the block in half or trim it to a size that it will fit in the space that's there. So beginning the second row, I am using this Beacon 3-in-1 glue, which I will link for you below, but you can also use super glue wood glue from Dollar Tree for this. And I actually switched to the super glue wood glue later on, and you'll see. The second row gets placed on the space between the 2 blocks under it, and I go all around the balloon with the second row, placing the blocks on top of that empty space in the row beneath it. Hopefully that makes sense to you. You can pause or slow down the video at any time to rewatch something you're unsure of, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And again, when I have a space a little too small for a whole block, I will trim the block using my miter shears to make it fit into that space. Once we're done with the second row, we continue with the third row in exactly the same way. Each block is placed over the space between the 2 blocks that are beneath it, and we're going to continue to trim or cut the blocks in half when it's needed to fit into smaller spaces. Once I get to that 4th row, I do try and lean those blocks inward on that row, a little more onto and toward that balloon to try and begin making that rounded dome shape that we need to create a sphere. It's not a perfect system by any means. We cannot expect perfection with this. Seriously, any expectations of this being perfect, throw those out the window right now. This is uncharted territory, making round walls out of rectangles. At this point, I'm just trying to use enough glue and lean in just enough to help create the rounded shape that I'm going to need. And hopefully all of that makes sense to you. And you see, as I get higher toward the top of the balloon, the space gets tighter and tighter. So we need to get a little creative with cutting some smaller pieces and maybe just squeezing some block pieces in here and there for the sake of helping the rounded top be stronger. So as a result, we are not really following the pattern that we started with so much as we near that top. And you'll see when we get to the very top, this is especially true. It's kind of a free-for-all up there. It's anything goes. I try and use as many of the whole blocks as possible, but you can see that off camera, I went and I squeezed lots of block pieces up there into that top, and I basically just crossed my fingers while letting that whole side dry overnight. I carefully removed the wood block side from the balloon, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I did find myself reinforcing multiple blocks at the top with more wood glue and having to fix a couple of those loose blocks here and there as well. And again, this is not a perfect project. Just lose those expectations of perfection right now. And then we repeat what we just did with the first side of our sphere for a second side of the sphere. We are going to do the whole process all over again. This time on this side, I decided to use the super glue wood glue. It just kind of seemed like the wood glue was just a tad bit stronger than the clear beacon glue. So I used it on this side, and I have to say that all in all, this second side felt a little bit more sturdy than the first. So take that opinion under advisement and use whichever glue you'd prefer. I'm not sure it matters a whole lot, but I kind of preferred the super glue. I also used more glue this time on each individual block because I really didn't want to have to go back and fix so many loose blocks on this second side as much as the first side. So that's my motivation. Also, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm doing multiple duplicate parts in one project, the first one is always the worst one. All the ones following it are always better. Let me know in the comments if you find that to be the case as well. And as you can see, as I get to the top of the second side, again, pattern-wise, it's a little bit of a free-for-all. I cut and I trim blocks to fit into places where I think there's too much free space. And that free space might affect the strength of the project. Then I'm going to let that whole second side completely dry overnight. I like the natural wood of the two rounded sides, but I did feel it needed a little something color-wise. So I decided to do a stain using some extra strong instant coffee and a paintbrush and just painting the coffee onto the blocks on both sides of the project and getting that coffee stain on the insides and on the outsides of both pieces, and also getting into those edges and ends and all those little nooks and crannies in there. I did end up doing 2 coats of coffee on each of my 2 pieces, and I let them dry for a couple of hours. I really like using the coffee stain for these tumbling tower blocks because it's easy to use, it's less mess. There are no fumes like stain, except for the smell of coffee, which I really like. It's really cheap if you buy cheap instant coffee. Plus, it dries really quickly. It's just all in all easier. I wanted to make a base for the sphere, so I grabbed these 2 small white dishes I had in my stash, but you definitely can get similar dishes at Dollar Tree. These are not plastic or ceramic. They're melamine, I think. I grabbed the construction adhesive to attach the 2 bowls together bottom to bottom, but you can use E6000, which works just as well, and it's clear, so it's going to look better. I did let the 2 glued bowls dry overnight. Once dry, I grabbed some E6000 and covered the top rim of one of the bowls with the glue. I added a couple of dabs of hot glue too for some immediate hold, and I'm carefully placing the first side of my sphere onto that bowl base. And I'm going to let that set up for a couple of minutes. It's going to take hours for the E6000 to completely dry, but the hot glue helps it hold immediately. I'm using 4 of these fairy lights I got in a pack from Amazon, and I'll link them for you below, but I am pretty sure you can get the exact same kind of fairy lights at Dollar Tree too. I unraveled the 4 lights, and I'm going to slide that little on-off switch for the lights in between an opening in the blocks at the bottom so that they'll be all together. And once I have all 4 lights kind of puffed up inside the bottom side of the sphere, I'm going to use some super glue, wood glue on the ends of each of those blocks on that top row so that I can then place the top part of the sphere right on top of it, making sure that the blocks on the top are placed on the space between the blocks on the bottom, just like all the other rows. And here it is, my friends, the elusive tumbling tower block sphere, or decorative ball, or even a globe. As I said at the beginning, this is not a perfect project. It's not super strong. That part could use a little work, but I am pretty darn proud of it. I think there are so many possibilities for this sphere. I think it has tremendous decor potential. I styled it with those fairy lights, but you don't have to. You can put greenery inside of it. You could put nothing inside of it. Make it any color or wood tone. Just the sky's the limit. I wanted to make a wood sphere out of tumbling tower blocks, and I did. Why? I'm not sure. I'm not sure I have a why for you guys, but why not? And you know the drill. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this Dollar Tree tumbling tower block wooden sphere? Would you make one? What would you do differently? You know I love hearing from all of you. I hope today's journey has inspired you, and if you loved this DIY and crave more creative adventures, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Medicated Housewife DIYs and join our little crafting family. We'd love to have you here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, we're making the world a more beautiful place, one DIY at a time.